Fantasy Six-Pack Hour with your hosts, Joe Vaughn and AJ Applegarth.
Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, as usual, my co-host, AJ Applegarth. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Pretty. I'm half and half on the Michigan State loss. I had them in my
didn't matter to me.
my one pool for the bracket, but I also won $100 on the blocks for getting the halftime score of 8-3 and then, or 3-8 maybe, and then the final score also of the opposite. So I was like, cool, I'll take it.
Well, that's nice. And when you can win $100, I will take losing a random game in a bracket challenge any day.
Yeah.
My brackets were pretty horrible in the first couple rounds. That game didn't matter to me at all. The only thing that's going to possibly save me is I have 3 of my final 4 left and my final left. So that could be a huge point gain if that all hits. But let's be real, that ain't happening.
But it's gotta hit.
That's probably not going to happen. So I almost had all 4, and then who was it? Marquette lost late into the Sunday game and the Sunday's games, and I was like,
Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, Michigan State, go away. So had they won, Marquette that is, I would have had all 4, which would have been sweet, and I would have been sitting pretty, but not so much, because I don't know of a lot of people that have the same Final Four as me with Marquette, Bama, Texas, and Gonzaga. Thought it was pretty unique, but still good. So I went with it. Although I will say we did not mention this last week. We completely botched because we might have been drinking before the show because you were at my house. But UVA, suck it, yeah.
I mentioned it. We mentioned
we did not after the show. We totally we were like, oh man, we forgot to say it's on the show. Yeah, you don't remember that either. So yeah, last week was kind of bad. Remember? No, you don't. Anyway, that's cool. All right, guys. So tonight we're going to be talking about doing some spring training analysis, some spring training wrap up, covering some of the performances that are going on. Some guys that we're kind of watching because they're coming back from injury or they're in position battles, that kind of stuff. So very important things as your drafts are approaching this weekend, early next week. Season is right around the corner, everybody. It's a week away. So time to cram for the test. So before we jump into things, though, just want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button, hit those like buttons, leave us those 5-star ratings, leave those comments. We love it, and it helps us out tremendously. And then also, if your drafts are coming up, make sure you go over to FantasySixPack.net. Check out our plans. We've got an all-access plan, which is the entire site, every sport that we have. But right now, obviously, baseball is the focus. We've got our draft cheat sheets. We've got our most accurate rankings. Keith Lott is the number 1 ranker, according to the Fantasy Pros. I'm number 6. Travis Argo is number 10. We are the only site to have 3 in the top 10. So nobody else can say that. So go there and you get our full rankings there between the 3 of us. And then to put the cherry on top, we brought in Tim McCullough, who between the years of 2017 and 2019, when he ranked pretty heavily, he was the number 1 ranker between those 3 years combined. So that is pretty phenomenal over there. So go ahead and check that out. Go to FantasySixPack.net/plans. and use promo code F6P MLB for 15% off. It's going to be in the show description and all the show notes there, so get that. And then, it might be too late for you to join this year because, drafts are happening this weekend and the early next week. But just in case, or if you're looking for something different next year, you guys got to move your leagues to Fantrax. It's the best place to play, in my opinion. I don't know, AJ, I usually say it every week. Why don't you give a few words on it, man?
Yeah, I guess I can take the reins because you usually just jump right in. Yeah, I love Fantrax. The first Dynasty League for baseball that I ever did, I played on Fantrax, and I was amazed by just the span of this player pool that they have. And the best part about it is if you know of a guy that's randomly not in their player pool, you send them an email, they jump right on it, they add the guy. So it's there. I mean, it's like top-notch customer service.
Mm-hmm.
They have good news updates and everything with the players as well. So, dude, I like Fantrax way more than, the old ESPN or Yahoo. It's just a better site. Way more options to set your league up and to really customize it to what you want. And you don't always have to pay for some of these options, which is nice.
You don't have to pay for most of them. Some of the really like obscure ones.
There are some randos, but even those are really cool too. So if you don't mind springing for a few extra bucks or tacking it into the buy-in for your league mates, just do it. Just stop wasting your time with these other sites. Fantrax is the way to go.
Absolutely. And by the way, they're doing it this year. They did it last year, so I'm sure next year, if you're trying to switch your league over, the same thing. They do tons of giveaways. This year is a signed Vlad Guerrero jersey, and they're giving away your whole league gets to go to a game of their choice this MLB season. So that's pretty phenomenal stuff. So, all right, well, we have spent enough time on all of that. Let's do our beer of the week.
Beer.
What you got, man?
Well, because you twisted my arm, I was not going to drink tonight and take a month off.
And then you went with this?
And hey, go big or go home, man.
Wow.
Like I said, you twisted my arm, so I'm going with the Black Flag Brewing Company's You Can't Skip Lunch. It's the 10.1%er triple IPA.
Oh my goodness.
You're welcome.
You went
will
from
be entertaining.
I'm going to take the night off to a triple. Did I really twist your arm? That doesn't feel like it. I mean, you could have had one of your high lifes.
I could, and maybe I still will because Thursdays don't count according to you. So
don't rat me out. All right, Heather's watching this, going, "Joe, damn you!" All right, so I am drinking a Nepenthe, as you finally told me what it's pronounced officially. Alpaca Ruckus Triple IPA as well. Pretty cool can art by all of their stuff here, so I like it. I don't think it really means anything. It's just kind of cool looking. But
isn't it
gave this a 4 out of 5 on Untapped.
Or is it Ruckus?
So I said Ruckus.
Oh, okay. I had it. Well, I had one there, obviously, when I was there last weekend, but
Ruckus.
Huh. I think they had another one that was Alpacas Fracas.
I
like that name better.
I think you're right, actually, but I don't know. Whatever. I got this one because it was better. All right, let's move it along here. Bring in our guest of honor, Mr. Mike Kurland, co-owner of Gaining the Edge. He writes for The Athletic and Fantasy Pros. He hosts the Bases Loaded pod. This guy does everything. He is awesome. And welcome back to the show, man. Happy to have you here.
I'm busy. I like my annual visit for spring training stuff. To be fair, I mean, it is what I'm known for these days. The spring training, everything. Tracker.
Yeah. That thing is phenomenal, by the way.
It's just, it was funny is I do like something similar all season long, like not the tracker itself, but the written content, the write-ups. I do them like 3 to 4 times a week for the Patreon, which I was shameless plug, patreon.com/@GTEFantasy. And, where we have different tiers and all that. But yeah, that's where I did them last year. People seem to like them. So I brought it back this year, brought some friends with me, and we're having a lot of fun. So it's
awesome, man.
Yeah, I do it all season long. It's just like I said, it's funny that people know me for spring training, but I do the same thing. I wanted to show something off since you guys have drinks. I don't have drinks, but I don't have a drink, but I do have this amazing, awesome coaster someone made me. It's like it's made out of Gary Sheffield.
Wow. That is pretty cool.
I like that.
So yeah, I thought I'd share that because I don't have anything to drink, but you could tell it's getting kind of old because it's turning yellow. This was clear once upon a time, but back when I used to
it's like the old bar tables that they put the laminate over top. Like after a while, they just get like yellow.
Yeah, That's and that's pretty much it. But yeah, so I wanted to share that because it was back when I used to collect cards, and I met some people. One guy used to make these for fun, and I just traded him a card he wanted for one of these, and it was just a cool thing we did. Just it was a fun community. If you meet the right people in any community, you kind of have a good time, you know.
Yeah,
and that was kind of so. I wanted to show that off because you guys have the drinks, but I got the coaster, so it kind of works.
Yeah,
2 peas in a pod.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, in this case, 3 peas in a pod. We'll make an exception.
All right.
Yeah, I've been arm twisted again. Not so heavily into starting collecting cards again. So I don't know.
It's just such an
but
addiction.
I just have like
spend money, so
piles over here, back in here, hidden away. Just waiting for whatever random rookie cards I have to somehow hit.
All right, let's get into the spring training analysis, and AJ, I'll let you start it off.
All right, sounds good.
I guess first tonight.
First to
feeling generous.
Yeah, what's with that? What happened to you this week?
Nothing.
He has a guest. He's trying to show off for the guest.
My house is sick, and I'm tired.
Usually, you don't let me talk at all. So, all right, spring training analysis here. We mentioned that you have the lineup tracker and everything. But first off, what do you pay attention to most in spring when you're trying to evaluate the different players and their value for this upcoming season? Like, how much stock do you put into the spring training performance?
So not much at all. And that's like counterintuitive because all we know in baseball, we're taught to, hey, let's look at stats. Let's break them down. And meanwhile, what I'm looking for, it's actually often player specific. For example, with Joe Adell, last I looked, he's striking out way too much this spring. And this, again, these guys are facing AAA pitching, AA pitching even sometimes. And if a guy like that with those types of strikeout issues comes in to 2023 spring training and still continue to struggle with strikeouts, I'm inclined to think that that's a continuing issue. However, a guy like Kelenic, for instance, he's not striking out as much and he's having a huge spring. People are hyping it up and getting really excited, but it's almost like people forget that he was a top prospect. Kelenic has the tools. Nobody should be questioning that. So someone like him, I'm watching his strikeout rates, but he's also striking out. I think it was like 22% of the time I looked at it today. And Kelenic never really has issues with strikeouts against minor league pitching, which is what majority of these guys are facing. Mm-hmm. So even with him, it's hard to really take away, but it's still encouraging to see a guy like that, coming off a down season or a couple seasons, hasn't really figured it out. And to see Kelenic get off to a hot start, it's very encouraging. But even then, it's more like hey, let's make a note of this. A lot of this is just like, hey, let's pay attention to this and let's see what's happening. But we have StatCast data finally, so it's kind of nice that we get a lot of and it's a lot more consistent. Not every park has it yet, which I'm sure will happen over the next couple of years. But we're getting max exit velocities. We're getting access to like pitch velocities, pitch mixes, and different stuff like that. So for pitchers, there's a lot of like, hey, let's keep an eye on this because this velocity is up or down, and this player looks like he's throwing a new pitch. How is it performing? So it's more, like I said, it's more specific to player. It's player to player based on what stats I'm looking for. But the time stats matter, if stats do matter, it's when there's a position battle. So, and we'll get into some of those as well. So that's really what I'm looking for. It really is a team by team, player by player. It really does change. So that's why I realized over the years, it's to just sit there and look at who's batting where. That's just a small part of a huge puzzle. But that does matter too, because for instance, Matt Vierling can possibly lead off, and Matt Vierling plays baseball still. Yeah, he was traded to the Tigers, and him and Nick Matone have roles entering the year, and Vierling was expected to be a short side platoon guy, but he could even factor into leading off / playing more so every day than we expected. Maybe he's still getting reps because he was dealing with injury, but stuff like that kind of catches your attention. And a lot of this is like deeper league stuff. I'm realizing I'm finding a lot more deeper league value in this information, because you're finding the guys that are fringe players, guys that are not quite making the cut or just might make the cut, players like Oscar Colas who have gained hype and aren't exactly names, but a guy like him, you're watching, well, can he outperform Sheets? When him and Sheets are in the lineup together, who's playing right field? Because that's the spot that's really up for grabs, right field / DH. And Colas is, but Colas is not on the 40 man. So you see how deep this goes per player. It's wild. And this is stuff I'm trying to monitor as much as I can. And what I mean by that is I go team by team looking at all this stuff. I keep tabs of everyone's 40 man, everyone's roster moves, who's hitting where, who's playing where, and try to get an idea. I try to give myself and everyone who obviously follows my work the best idea of what they can expect entering the year and try to attack the early part of the season. Things change so rapidly in baseball, injuries happen, but I also keep tabs of, hey, this injury happens, this is the next man up, like Trevor Larnach. Yeah, I tweeted about him today. He's having a really strong spring. That's not the big deal. The big deal is that paired with the strong spring, there's a lot of paths to playing time right now entering the year for that Twins team dealing with a bunch of injuries. So you look, and that's the type of thing you want to know. Who's the fourth outfielder? Like Alex Call for the Washington Nationals. Having all this information on top of mind, not even as an analyst, but as a player, just benefits me because now I have all these players I know to have. I call them watch list warriors. It's a cliche, cheap, cheesy name, but it's what I come up with because that's what us content creators do. We come up with cheap, cheesy names for things or little ideas. Anyway, I'm on tangent. The Adderall's wearing off. Don't mind me. So all over the
know
place.
the feeling.
But it's one of those things where it's I even forgot where we were going. But yeah, it's just one of those things where having those names really benefits you more than you realize from both sides of the coin, and it really keeps you sharp. And when people are asking you questions when you're doing a podcast, prep isn't even necessary at this point. I just have all the information, and now I'm just rambling and bragging, so we can move on.
and
Dap is awesome.
He's kidding. Does he play first base? Because of course, Hoskins.
He did. I think he actually. It's funny.
He did. Yeah.
I think he actually played third base today for the. The problem is they also traded. Because Hoskins out for the year with ACL. The Phillies traded him. So
that's right. Phillies not even on.
He's on the Tigers.
He's on the Tigers now.
Him and Nick Matone. Yeah,
he used to be Phillies, right? I was like, holy crap! I didn't.
Yeah, and then you have
he got a nice little run last year with some playing time because of Harper being out.
Mm-hmm. And Vierling has tools, so like so he has a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. It's just a matter of him putting it together. And no better place to have an opportunity than Detroit. There's not really anything stopping him from getting that run. That's and so, but the name to watch for in Philadelphia is Derek Hall. Huge power bat, big time bopper, but there's some swing and miss concerns. Not as much in the minors, but last year in last year when he came up, it was like a 30+% strikeout rate for Derek Hall. So Hall's a guy though. He should slot right into the middle of that lineup, lefty bat, and has a lot of thump. Might platoon, but it's the strong side as the lefty hitter. So all things considered, though, that team's getting real thin real quick. You might see Edmundo Sosa making a difference.
It's gonna be interesting. There's a lot of hype around the team with the Trey Turner signing, but maybe the losing is less. I just kicked my camera. Trying to stretch my knee out because it's about to like lock on me. That's awesome. Oh, that's old man news here. Go back to what you were saying. Like, you don't want to put too much stock into the spring, but it's watching the right things. And it's, some of the same things that we say about football for those of you who play fantasy football too. Like preseason, do I care that such and such quarterback went out and only completed like 4 of 10 passes for 80 yards or for 30 yards and not even a touchdown? Not really. I kind of want to see these position battle guys like the third or second or third receivers, like who on these teams that don't have a lot of depth. Like I want to see those guys, and that's what you were talking about, Mike. So moving over here to maybe some things that we are paying a little closer attention to is guys returning from injury and kind of how they're performing. And these are things that I kind of look at when I look at spring. And of course, these are some really big names that I'm mentioning here, but Jacob deGrom, right? Chris Sale, Tatis, Chisholm, Chris Bryant. These are all guys that are coming back from injury. And for me, like, and you could probably list a bunch of other guys as well. I just kind of threw 5 out there. But for me, like, what I'm wondering with you is, do you care as much about, evaluating these guys coming back from injury to making sure that they're like kind of back in form for one? And then like with some of these guys that I mentioned, are you buying them at their current ADP, knowing that there is fairly good injury history risk with all 5 of these guys?
So it really is player specific. So again, a guy like Tatis, what caught my attention was the very first game that he finally made an appearance this spring. He stole a base. No one is going to recklessly run in spring training unless they A, have a green light, and B, are healthy. And that right there spoke to me as like, and that's the type of thing I'm looking for. Not necessarily how good they perform. Obviously, Tatis is he's been out of baseball for like what, a year and a half. It feels like it's probably been about that long.
It's been a while, yeah.
Because between the injuries,
a shoulder and a wrist, right? So
he had both of them. He had them both fixed though. He had both of them surgically repaired. With that said, does that mean he's going to turn back into form? That's to be determined. He is showing a little bit of power, a little bit of speed this spring. You know, he did have the home run, but he only has 2 extra base hits out of 10 hits. He has 3 stolen bases, so he is running, and he's still showing a solid overall approach to the plate and everything else. So Tatis, I'm not really too concerned about. I don't think PEDs were the reason for the talent. He's one of those guys that didn't need PEDs, and the talent was still going to be there type of thing. Almost like Barry Bonds never needed PEDs to be a Hall of Famer. Not saying Tatis is going to be. I hate to put them in the same conversation because they're not there, but Tatis is just a freak athlete and an overall just a great player. I don't put PEDs as the reason behind him being good. It's just a matter of there is risk there with health, but the skill set there is so tantalizing. And if you are a projections person, my projections were spitting him out as like a top earner at his position, even with everything, because he's missing 20 games to start the year, Tatis. Yeah. So you have to keep that in mind too. You have to be willing to stash him. He's going like early to mid second, sometimes the first, and then deeper format. I have a couple. I think I have at least one share. I only have like 6 teams, so I'm not drafting a whole lot this year like compared to usual. So I'm not opposed to him, but I like him in shallower formats where it's easier to make up the difference while he's out. But at the end of the day, if he comes back and is what we expect him to be, the issue is if he is going to miss time, Tatis, again, we're speaking about Tatis specifically here. If he is going to miss time, he's already starting off behind the 8 ball because he's already missing time. So it's kind of like compounding a little bit of added risk because now you really need him to miss even less time than you can already bake in for him missing just because he plays so aggressive. Again, stealing 3 bases in spring is not nothing. I'm encouraged by the health given the fact that we've seen a little bit of power, that we're seeing him run. I do
like the fact that he's running, but why I kind of pointed out the fact that it was a shoulder and a wrist, right? If I'm remembering right. Those both were so the running doesn't surprise me, right? Like, it surprised me more last year when we saw Acuna running more than his power because of the ACL. Yeah. Like, you were like, really? Okay, that's different. I thought it would have been kind of the opposite. But I guess, power comes from the legs too, so whatever. That being said, with Tatis, the fact that he's not being able to connect and have more extra base hits, more home runs, etc., that's where I sort of get concerned with him. And I kind of wonder if the power is going to take maybe like a whole half of a season for him to start ramping back up, maybe even fully into next season till we finally see the real Tatis come back, unless he gets injured again, which is very possible. But that's where I worry with Tatis is the power aspect of his game.
You're not wrong to question that, and honestly, that's fair to question because you're right. It's upper body. The reason why I think stealing bases matters is because all these guys don't slide.
Yeah, they don't slide head first.
They slide head first and they slide rather recklessly. Yeah. And that's where I'm kind of putting it at. Like, he's risking a jammed shoulder, a jammed wrist, a jammed hand on the base, and all that stuff. That's the type of thing. It's like, again, it's just added risk to body parts that can get injured while stealing bases in meaningless baseball. And that's why I'm saying it speaks to his health. But you're right. The power is what we want to see come back. It hasn't been there yet, but it could lead to more stolen bases. Granted, everyone's expecting stolen bases to go up this year, so maybe it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm not overly concerned. I believe in him as an athlete as a whole. And I think that's, again, it really is league specific. I don't like to take him too much like in a 15-teamer or stuff like that, just because there's less room for error. But again, at 12, where he can easily be the best player on your roster, while also you get something really good to hold over if he gets injured again and during the first 20 games, it's easier to kind of manage him there. So
the risk is a lot less. What about these pitchers, DeGrom and Sale? Like, what are you thinking about them? Like, I mean, there's DeGrom. Excuse me, DeGrom is still going super early, like fourth, fifth round, right? If not, around there. Sale's going a lot later. People are just like, I'm out on Sale. Like, it's been long enough, right? DeGrom is still. It's been long enough with DeGrom too. If people really like, he's been on the mound off and on, just a lot more off than on over the last 3 seasons.
I don't know. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. What's your thoughts on these guys? And I know DeGrom's only pitched once this spring so far. Sale's pitched 3 outings so far, some good, some bad. I'm kind of hit or miss with these guys. Projections for me say DeGrom is way better, and I know he is way better at this point, but I'm kind of out of them. I'm letting others jump on that grenade, and I might lose out, but I'm out.
So DeGrom is kind of in that conversation with Tatis in terms of having the potential, and DeGrom, I don't think anyone's going to argue, is the best pitcher per inning. If you want one pitcher on the mound for 1 inning to win you a game, it's DeGrom. Nobody's arguing that. Real life aspect, DeGrom is the best pitcher in baseball, and that's another thing that no one can argue. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. It's just that simple. However, he is still going in the second round of 15 teamers, late second, early third, and 12s. And he might even creep up just because the hype is building up, especially that we see him throw a healthy outing. Here's the thing. You give me 120, 130 innings of Jacob DeGrom. If that's all you get out of him, that's still probably a top 5 pitcher in fantasy, just how good he is. That's the thing. So it goes back to your 15,
but
but still, okay, top 15, you're drafting guys. When you draft a pitcher in the top 5, top 10, pitchers overall, you're hoping for a top 15 guy essentially in return. You're getting them, you're taking them with the idea of they're going to return value there or be close to it.
Yeah.
So even if he's top 15, say he's the 15th, 16th, heck, fringe top 20, the fact that he could have been top 3 if he stayed healthy, but you're getting him as the 6th, 7th, 8th pitch off the board even. That's where it gets kind of interesting. So I think again, it's funny because I think I only have 1 DeGrom share, and it's in a 12-teamer as well. So it goes to show you I kind of stick to that idea of I'd rather not take too many shots on them, but I'm willing to in a shallower format where I know it's easier to replace these types of guys. I want difference makers where I can get them in shallower leagues where I know I can replace the replacement value off the bench or off the waiver wire is also easier to come by. So DeGrom's a guy and Sale falls in that same category, but Sale is just now gaining some helium because he's healthy, and it wasn't with him. It was fluke injuries. It was a rib cage strain, and then he got hit in the pinky from a comebacker. So it was nothing structural. And I think they're going to kind of just let him loose. He's a veteran, almost I think the problem is we just saw Justin Verlander return from Tommy John and have a Cy Young season. So it's not saying that Sale's going to do that, but Sale's velo's been there. He's looked pretty good in spring. It's hard to bet against that. And I think Sale, if you're going to enter a draft, you don't want to take both these guys, but Sale being the guy going later, maybe you could build
Rule 1.
Sale's going around 129 right now on BC. That is
I think
super late.
The thing is, though, is you can build it for Sale. You can still build Sale, even though he's moving up. I think main events are kind of what everyone talks about, everyone does. Those are 15 teamers though, so take this with a grain of salt. But Sale is going around pick 100. So even around pick 100, what? 15, 30, 45. He's still SP3, SP4 range, for some people, depending on how you build your teams.
Yeah.
So he's still. He went up as high as pick 80. So still, even at pick 80, he's still your SP3 in most cases. At the end of the day, that's the type of guy that you can get as your SP3, and he can finish at SP1 or 2, like a top 20 guy, top 30 guy, and nobody would be surprised.
Yeah,
so
Sale, DeGrom's going at 32 right now. This is overall at FBC. I'm sure main events slightly.
That's what
different.
Main events was a high of 16 and a low of 27.
Okay, so he's going much higher. Yeah,
he's going.
There's not enough to me. Fringe. When I built the cheat sheet, there's not enough main events to really build an ADP.
I'm just taking that
worthwhile. But no, that's great data to share. Well, those are the sharks. Those are the guys.
Not just the sharks, but they're also very, very recent.
They're very smart.
We can pull. They're also these drafts are happening right now as we speak it live in Vegas.
Yes.
But if we go to OCs, let's talk 12 teamers. That's what majority of players play 10 and 12 teamers. So you go to OCs and you sort it by. You got to sort it by March 1st probably because
I just kind of did the general NFBC grab from there and pared it down to a month to get like more recent data, and
Sale,
then I
120. 120.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like 129. Yep.
Yeah, 120 is what I'm getting from, and OCs, for those who listening might not be familiar, those are 12 teamers. So that way you're getting a range. You're getting a range. Yeah. The point being, though, is he's still going. So in a 12 teamer, he's really like, I would look at him as a value. He has a high pick of 73, so he's moving way up boards. But still, your high pick around 70 or 80, even if that's paying the premium, you can still build around paying the premium.
Yes, you can. You'll get very good pitchers to build above him, and you know,
and
the risk isn't there like it was last year. People were taking him in the second and third round still last year, like they are DeGrom still. So it's like that risk there is still there for DeGrom big time, and that's why I'm out. But
I love DeGrom. He's so good.
I get it. I just
you shouldn't though.
I see him, and then I'm like, I could get DeGrom. I get it. But I could also get, you know,
let's see, the names I'm thinking of going right near them. Spencer Strider, Garrett Cole goes ahead of
Woodruff's.
I love Woodruff. That's the thing. I love Woodruff.
Yeah,
this year.
So like Striders and Woodruff's.
Alcantara, if you like safety, he's safe.
Yeah, I mean, Verlander's going right after him. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to take DeGrom to me in that range where you're like, these guys are still gonna be studs. Like, I'm fine with taking them, and
there's less risk,
way less risk. So,
but is there? Because then you can argue Verlander.
I mean, pitchers
40
are
years
risky,
old, you know.
Yeah, pitchers are risky regardless. But if I'm going there, I want somebody who's shown that he can stay healthy. You know, I always say you're not gonna win your league in the first few rounds, but you can definitely lose it.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So,
but let's move on to the next question here.
Speaking of the first few rounds and trying to win leagues here, who are some of these guys that are typical first or second round, you know, price tags that are actually worrying you a bit this spring because of their performance?
Okay, well,
higher profiles.
Okay, well, here's one high profile one that should have everyone concerned. Yordan Alvarez, and it's because of the fact that he hasn't played in a single spring game yet. Yeah. And it's a hand issue. It's a hand issue that Alvarez didn't have corrected, that's lingering from last year, and it stopped him from swinging a bat all spring. I am so nervous, and the talent is undeniable. But people forget that, what is he, a year removed from having injury issues, but with the knees type of thing? I think I called him Greg Oden at one point because he couldn't get his knees right. But hey, he's played a full season now. I can't call him Greg Oden. I can call him what's that basketball player? Roy something or other?
Hibbert?
No, not Hibbert. We're getting way off topic here. It's gonna bother me now. I'll look it up. The guy had
Portland player.
Portland,
Roy,
yeah. Didn't he play for the
Brandon
Heat
Roy.
too? Brandon Roy, thank you. Brandon Roy. I had the wrong last name, but yes, Brandon Roy, where he had some quality years, just couldn't play a long career because of his knees.
Good. I miss him.
His knees just stopped working.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's where it's like, can he transition from Greg Oden to Roy? But anyway, that's one name that just stuck out to me like a sore thumb because, well, no pun intended with the hand issue, but it's just he's really just like, because you're taking him, you're not getting a discount. Like he fell a little bit in some leagues, but he's still an early second round pick at worst. And
I took bets over him in TGFBI. I saw him and I was like, and I had the 11, and I'm like,
why wouldn't you just wait? And like, not that it's a huge difference, but like, if you want to take a power bat right there, why not just take Pete Alonso, who you know is healthy, trending up 3 straight years? Like maybe Alonso doesn't quite have his ceiling, but you know Pete Alonso's healthy, and there won't be any setbacks with Pete Alonso's hand unless he has a freak injury. Whereas all it takes is what? One bad swing from like, I'm just thinking worst case scenario, Alvarez has one bad swing and the hand is acting back up again. So Alvarez from lack of performance and dealing with a lingering hand issue, those two reasons.
Totally get it
For the early round guy. Other than that, though, not really much concern.
Yeah.
Like I feel like maybe Soto, but that's also injury related. Bobby Witt Jr., just because of lack of supporting cast and track record, you can argue like some red flags there. There's some swing and miss in his game. Some
in their first round.
He's a first rounder, so there is some risk there, some power speed, but I mean, he can also only be a 3 category guy.
It's interesting you say him because the cheat sheet doesn't like him as far as like value wise. Like I get that he's going to give you the power and speed, right, and obviously runs. RBI and average are going to hurt you with him, and to where like I get that you can maybe build around that, but you draft a guy like that in the first round, you want to get as close to a 5 category guy in the first round, in my opinion, as possible. He's not it. That's why I've not got a share of Bobby Witt yet, and the fantasy 6-pack cheat sheet completely agrees. And when I built it, I was like, "Oh, cool! Glad it agrees with me." It should. I built it.
It's tough though because you have some of the smartest players, some of the best players, around that swear by them, and it's like, well, am I wrong? Like I think it's okay to question yourself. Just you gotta own it one way or the other. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out.
I've always said like I love the potential with him, and
I
maybe
think the
he puts
talent's
the
there.
batting average together this year and proves me completely wrong. But if his batting average is back down in like 260s to or even worse, I think I'm gonna be more right than wrong. But yeah, it's hard to say with these early guys because again, spring training.
They all feel like slam dunk. They all feel like slam dunks until
they
they're
do.
not.
But let's move on here. So, sorry, where are we? Favorite player. Yeah, sorry, I'll let I had other screens up here. Favorite player. I don't have my normal format up. That's my problem on the show here. So favorite player who's killing it this spring that not enough people are talking about.
Yeah, I that question eluded me through all the other stuff. That's my bad. Let's see. I can come up with some names though. A couple fun names. Blake Sable from the I hope I say it from the Giants, and Cooper Hummel from the Mariners.
Oh, we got a question about him later. That's a good name. Good pull.
Oh, did we get a question? Did I miss that?
You are.
I did it right down there. Okay, cool. So we'll talk about him later. So I'll talk about Blake Sable, kind of just a Rule 5 guy, so he has to make the opening day roster. He can play catcher, outfield, so he's versatile, and that can play day one for this team. Because if anybody uses if there's a team it's like the Rays of the NL, the Giants are that team where they'll get the most use out of a guy like that. Last I checked, that's the problem with spring training numbers. They change so they change so fast. All it takes is one hot game or one cold game, and I'll pull up his numbers real quick. Sable still has no piss over 1,000. He has 2 stolen bases, 3 home runs, 10 walks to 13 strikeouts. So really strong, almost a 1-to-1, and really just a patient approach. 1,173 OPS, 359 average. Obviously, everything's gonna be good. And then you look at the strikeouts, 24.5%, a little bit of a concern just because that strikeout rate could inflate as we get into the regular season with the real pitching. But it also could be a patient approach. Like it could be that type of strikeout issue. Because with this type of patient approach, walking almost as much as striking out, and the strikeout rate is 24%, Sable is a guy that obviously has a very patient approach, but he's been hitting the cover off the ball. 7 total extra base hits out of his 14. So the pop is there. And the fact that he's 2 for 4, so he's not efficient on the base paths, but the fact that he can steal bases, and we're talking about a guy who can gain catcher eligibility, a guy that could be like he'll definitely be two catcher league viable. It's a matter of can he push for what's his face's playing time, Joey Bart, who has struggled in the past. Can Sable push for a bigger role? Next thing you know, he is even 1 catcher league viable. So Sable's a guy that I feel like isn't getting enough attention, but that's like a deep cut. Like not a lot of people are talking about him. So I'm trying to think of like the problem is I play in really deep leagues. So
but it's also fine because like these are guys that you might like with spring training. Like I said earlier, these might not be guys that you're going to draft, but these are guys that once your draft is over, go put that little blue star next to people, right? Like, I'm talking Fantrax, but I don't know what it is on other formats. I basically play on only Fantrax. But, click the little I button on NFBC, right? These are the guys that you want to put on your watch list. Like, hey, these guys performed really well, but not well enough to get drafted because they may not have a sure spot, right? So, but by the time, week 2 comes around, maybe you see the playing time adjust. Maybe surprises happen. Maybe they get hot early and some of the guys you drafted later just kind of dud out. That happens all the time. Go make the swap. See what happens. So I like talking about some of the deeper guys. Like, don't have to apologize. Like, it's perfectly fine.
I try to remember most people watching these shows, most people listening, don't play in leagues like you and I are playing leagues. I don't know if you play in those deep formats, but I just play in super deep formats.
I play in a couple 15-teamers, but not a lot. I play in a lot of 12s.
I feel gross. I drafted Vince Velasquez in a league today. That's how deep of a league I'm playing in. Like, yes, I need a shower. Like, when I was done with Raz Slam, it was like the last couple of rounds of Raz Slam, even though it's only 12-teamer, but we go 41 rounds. I'm like, I don't care anymore. But it's best ball, so like it's hard to take a chance on some of these dudes who like aren't gonna play early. So you at least just want at bats or like innings leagues. So you're just picking up anybody who's like a body who's gonna be on a roster in Raz Slam, and I'm picking up total junk, and I'm like, this is awful.
But I mean, like that very first Fab run in Wrestling,
yeah,
30% of my roster is changing over. I guarantee it.
Yeah, so Vince Velasquez, for reference, because I would not recommend him being drafted in any league except for it's a draft champions league where you pick 750 players, 750 players deep. So this was round 46. Okay. So around pick like 690, 680 ish, right around there. So this guy has a path to innings. That's the only reason why he's on my.
Yeah.
But a player I do like, another player.
He's okay for at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another. Here's three players I like. Three real quick. Will Benson of the Reds and Bryce Terang of the Brewers.
Bryce Terang is getting a lot of hype.
And Will Brennan of I'll tag team them. Will Brennan and Gabriel Arias of the Guardians. I got to say the right name.
Your boy Dap is and hopefully nobody from my Dynasty League is listening, because Dap joined my team because I needed to rebuild, and I don't know the minor league.
Yeah, Dap is good with prospects.
But so I was like, Dap, come help. So he was like, hey, how about this Turing guy? And I'm like, honestly, I was like, who? And then I looked him up, and I was like, oh wait, I've heard of this guy. He's actually really good. Yeah, we're good with him.
Former top prospect for the team. Former top prospect for them. The thing for him is stolen bases and batting average. And this spring, he's showing that 294 batting average in his 38 plate appearances. 3 stolen bases, 3 for 3. Has a home run. He's not a 0 for power, but it's not a strength. So it's kind of like 10 to 12 home runs. If he hits more than that, great, because the ballpark and all that. But realistically, batting average, stolen bases, and playing time at second base, but probably on a platoon. I don't think he plays against too many lefties, so you gotta know that. But that's Terang. Brennan and Benson comes down to playing time opportunities as well. Brennan a little tougher because Miles Straw, although Miles Straw is terrible, they value Straw's glove in the outfield there.
Yeah.
So if Straw has like a sub 600 or 700 OPS again, it was terrible. He was awful last year at the plate. If he's that bad again,
the Steals last year and was like, never again.
If he's that bad again, Will Brennan should get a look sooner than later there. And Benson is just a very toolsy player they acquired this year. The Reds did. I forgot. Wow, Benson's going to drive me nuts who they got them from. It doesn't matter. The main thing here for Benson is that playing time opportunity. Green America Small Park. It's a match made in heaven because he has the tools. We're talking loud tools. The power is there. It might not be like elite, but we're talking 20 plus home runs in that ballpark. And I think he has 6 stolen bases this spring already. So Benson's already showing off the wheel. And guys like TJ Friedel, Jake Fraley, and Nick Senzel, who's working his way back, but played third base, I believe, today. So he's not even playing center field. So that would keep a spot open in the outfield. But it's kind of deep there, but it's not the most talented depth. So Benson can easily work his way in there, especially if they want to make a point to get him on there. Again, they went out of their way to acquire him. So Will Benson, out of these 3 is probably the flashiest and one of my favorites. I love Terang. I've been in on Terang all year. And a boring name, one more boring name, Brian Anderson, just because with Tyrone Taylor out. Yes, Brian Anderson from the Marlins. The Brewers got him.
He's always decent when he plays, man. He's boring.
Healthy. He's healthy. He's going really late in drafts. He's playing third base and right field in spring. And against lefties, they have an opening at third base, which is why I mentioned that Terang could be platooning, because if they don't they have Brosseau and other options too, but Anderson can play third base. He can play right field. And with Tyrone Taylor out, I think Anderson's going to get a shot to start the year as a starter for most days for this team. And Anderson, when healthy, is a decent player. Now he's getting to play in I think it's a 1-year deal, so he's probably playing for another contract.
20 bombs in 2019, man. Like, he's not bad.
And you also have
good, but he's not bad.
He's just one of those guys where 2 home runs this spring, a stolen base. So the fact that he's running a little bit, 1,033, 8 OPS. So I'm not saying it's anything special. I'm just saying that there's a path to playing time there, and he's coming off a hot spring. Maybe he's healthy finally, so he could put it all together. And that ballpark, best ballpark he's ever played in his career.
Yeah.
So Anderson is a name that in your deeper leagues, if you're scraping for some plate appearances, Anderson seems to have them to start the year. And Arias, just real quick, Owen Miller type. If anyone remembers Owen Miller, just kind of being plugged and played last year for them, he beat out Tyler Freeman. Freeman was sent down, so Arias is a guy that should open the year with a utility role. That's a very deep. That's a AL only type. I got him like in the 40th round or so, just to give you an idea. Like in this league, I was telling you about how deep it goes. So he's a guy that it's going to take an injury for regular plate appearances, but it looks like he's opening the season with a semi-utility role, like kind of an infield, corner outfield type of thing. So again, more of an AL only, definitely not mixed league relevant right now, but a guy that could get maybe 2-3 starts a week on a good week. And in an AL only deep enough league, that matters. Plate appearances matter. That's the type of guy you can go out and get. Whew.
Definitely. All right.
Sorry.
So,
sorry, guys. I can
no,
get this. You're right at my wheelhouse. I'm like, it's all up here, man. I just got done with two huge articles for The Athletic breaking down all the stuff per team. So NL was last week, AL was this week.
This is great info, man. I love it. I love
it. It's all up here, ready to come out of here.
I mean, honestly, I was paying kind of more attention to the WBC this year than spring training.
It was great,
really, and it was phenomenal. Just watching those guys play for their countries and actually have fun, care. I mean, it was awesome. So this is nice to catch up on at this point. So speaking of WBC, we had obviously my new favorite boy, Trey Turner for the Phillies, crushing bombs. We got Brendan Donovan. He's got 4 bombs this spring. He's got a 341 average. I mean, he's never really showed a ton of great power in the minors, and he definitely didn't last season. So is this just more of a case of, spring training stats, or do we think he's actually unlocked something that we haven't seen?
So this is a perfect example of you have to, when you're looking at stats and watching spring training and trying to figure out something, you also have to do some homework. And if you can actually, I know spring training games aren't the funnest thing to watch, but if you don't watch them, just go to Twitter, because I found this from oh my goodness, pool hitter. Wow, Rob DiPietro. He first person I saw post it, and I went and watched it myself. But Marmol was actually saying that this approach of his this spring, Brendan Donovan's, was purposefully changed to be more aggressive and really try to tap into some of that power he has. Because Donovan has the elite contact skills. He has the good on base ability. Donovan has these core strong skill sets that will will just set a good ground, a good floor for production. But the thing is I guess he's gonna sell out a little bit. When I say sell out a little bit, he goes from being elite to being above average, which is still, in today's baseball, if you can hit the ball at an above average clip while, selling out for power a little bit, I'm going to say go for it, especially because Donovan's the type of guy that if he's that good at seeing the ball, why not just try to pick your spots a little more, But yes, apparently, according to Marmol, which was a live interview during a game, he was saying that Donovan was purposely trying to produce more power this year, came in with this approach change. And that's why if you look, I think with him, last I checked, he's striking out more and walking less, which is by design.
Which makes sense,
so we might see the walks take a little bit of a hit. We might see the OBP take a little bit of a hit, which is one of his strengths. But if Donovan can turn some of that into some more power and meaningful stats all around, I think it's a good little change in production. And
those were elite. So
if they don't, I was gonna say, if it doesn't work out for him, he probably will just revert back to what worked for him anyway. So it's one of those things where we'll see where it goes. But yes, it is a purposeful change, which matters. So it's there is a little more fire to this smoke than your average, than like a Kelnick smoke, where we know the tools are there, but can it carry over? This is this is purposeful. Like they're actually putting up like a little smoke warning, and I think I see a flame over the tree over there. There's a little bit. We'll see if the fire actually.
There's there's also a lot of competition on that Cardinals team. So he's got to do something to stay in that lineup, in my opinion. I know,
I would think
second, but there's lots of guys that can come in, Yepes can move to infield, and then they can bring in Jordan Walker, and there's lots of movement that can happen. Right. And so he could easily be the last man out, or the first man out, I guess you should say, or I should say. And so it's just, Donovan, I feel like I've always liked him as a player and as a prospect. It was just kind of toolsy, but not great in anything, but always a guy who was just the dude can hit, which is what you're saying. And now maybe he's tapping into something. Maybe he's figured out something. He's adjusting and making, hitting the ball a little harder and figuring out if I need to stay in this really powerful Cardinals lineup, I need to actually hit some home runs. So
I think it's going to matter about his defense. The Cardinals value good defense, and last year his defense at second base was not the greatest, but Donovan did play a really good third base. So I feel like if you can play a really good third base, you can figure out second base. If you're entering a year focusing on that as your primary position. And remember, the shift is gone. So with the shift rules in place, you need good defenders. You need players that can that have range, that have an arm. And if you can play third base well, I feel like you can play second base well. So I think Donovan will make that transition well. And Gorman is his main competition, and there's so much swing and miss there. I know they're not going to give up on him as a prospect necessarily, or as a product as a whole. But I don't know if Gorman's going to be pushing for that spot anytime soon. I think Donovan can hold him off a little bit. I think the leash is going to be a little longer there, just given the fact that I think, again, it's going to come down. I think it'll come down to defense, but also lack of other true options to play second base. I guess they could move Edmund over, but DeYoung's been terrible with the bat, and he's not even healthy right now. So that would be like the one thing I could see, like if DeYoung plays second, shortstop, and Edmund moves over to second. So I can see that happening. But that whole thing, I think right now it's Walker. There's a spot open via DH right now. It's like the funny thing is we're over here, we're creating this unnecessary path to playing time issue because Yepez and Burleson, neither one of them has really stood out this spring. So not either one of them is really pushing hard for that spot.
Correct.
And then you have Jordan Walker, who should break camp, but he's not even on the 40-man. But they do have a spot open on the 40-man. One of the few teams that actually have a spot available. So all they have to do is add him, and then he's on the 40-man. So Jordan Walker, no reason why he shouldn't break camp at this point. He's definitely, and this is a team that wants to compete.
He's deserved it. It's just a matter of are they going to mess with his playing time or service time or whatever.
I was going to say that would be the only thing because he's not even 21.
It happens. So we got a question real quick before we move on to the next question that we had, and it is from Dap here, and it is seems like the entire Mariners pitching staff went to Driveline, which is I guess some sort of off season camp that
it's the
facility.
Thing now,
it's the real deal, and working new pitches. So Kirby's working a splitter, Marco's working a slider, and so on. Any of these guys standing out to you in spring training because of that?
So all of them are really looking good. I think all it is kind of confirmation bias. The pitcher looking the worst, though, is Luis Castillo, which is funny, but I feel like that's going to be – I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
The problem is we're talking about, 2 starts worth of innings roughly for these guys? So it's like actual – So
one bad start, and you're like, bleh.
one bad
and
outing.
They're tinkering, they're messing around with stuff. It happens.
Something about Robbie Ray. I think I heard his velocity up. I heard something. I read something the other day. I was
Velocity's
like,
up.
something was going. For, Robbie Ray had something going for him. Well, right now he has a 0.75 ERA and a 1.17 WHIP. Robbie Ray is doing something, and he has 21 strikeouts in 12 innings. Robbie Ray is doing something right this spring.
It's one of our next questions. So
I like it.
If you want to save it, but no, that's cool.
But
Since you mentioned the Mariners, but
yeah, he mentioned the Mariners. So I was just bringing up that type of stuff. It's like that's the stuff. That's where you start looking. Okay, cool. These stats stick out. Let's go look into them. And if I pull up Robbie Ray's Savant page, I'm sure I'd have to go find a start of his.
Yeah.
But I think it was the fact that he purposefully made a point to do something this offseason to make a change. That blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. And now you're seeing some production. I'm like, wait a minute. Now I gotta go find that nugget.
Yeah, now you gotta go figure out what it is.
Because Robbie Ray, he won the Cy Young for a reason, right? Like,
yeah. Everybody thought it was a little fluky, and so did I. But if he can make another tweak, I feel like he made a tweak that season that he won the Cy Young. So if he can make another tweak, and people aren't ready for it, then he's got the stuff to be able to throw people off and be good enough. But last battle question we got for you. What happened with Vaughn Grissom, man? This dude in Atlanta, he played very well last season for the Braves at the end. Played well through the playoffs. I feel like this has to be a service time thing with him. Orlando Arcia is not better than Vaughn Grissom, right? Quick thoughts on that.
He's definitely not. We can keep it simple. He's not better than Grissom.
Okay.
What the issue is?
Move on from that.
Well, the issue is apparently the defense isn't ready for Grissom, or they don't think it is. Grissom wasn't a great defender, and it was a small sample, but was not a great defender last year at second base. So moving over to a new position, they value a good shortstop there in Atlanta, and it's really as simple as that. I think he's just going down there. Plus, they can play the what's called that game where the service time game. Yep. I think his date is around June 5th, between June 5th and June 10th is what I saw floating around Twitter. So it could be a mix of.
I wish they would get rid of that. God,
but it's weird because the Braves don't usually do that. Maybe the Grissom turned down a long-term deal, and they're like, well, screw you. We're going to we're gonna Jared Kelnick,
Yeah.
Jared Kelnick you turn us down, we're sending you down type of thing.
You turned down the early Acuna deal that he should have never
Yeah.
taken because that dude should have gotten paid. I mean, still got good money, but let's be real, he probably could have gotten a lot more.
Albie, Strider, they got all these guys. They got a lot of these guys.
It's
Michael
so
Taylor.
Crazy how they get all these guys so early.
Not Michael
the only guy
Taylor,
they didn't get was the pitcher.
Mike Wright. No.
No. I was thinking Michael Harris. Sorry, they got Michael Harris, not Michael Taylor. I was thinking Michael Taylor. Wow, that's
there's a.
How do you mix those up? Huh?
There's a pitcher
Michael
they
A.
didn't
Taylor?
get, and I'm blanking. I'm gonna look it up because I'm gonna.
The only pitcher I know is Strider.
Max Fried. They haven't gotten Max Fried yet.
Oh, they probably won't at this point.
Yeah, at this point he's got 1 year left. He's out.
He
Like
done-
he's gonna be like, show me the money. No, he's
Yeah.
out. They're not getting him next year because the Braves don't pay guys like that. So,
No, they let Dansby walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the quick and easy one. Let's move on to
All
the
right.
pitching. That
So
we
yeah,
already
let's
kind of jumped into real
let's
quick.
pivot to the pitching here. So of the pitchers, we kind of talked about potentially Robbie Ray having a velocity spike here. I mean, who are some of these other guys you're looking at that have had some velocity gains or drops, and who stands out to you? And are you worried about buying in on some of these guys, or are you buying in because of these?
So the issue with this stuff in small doses, like small appearances, for instance, I believe I'm trying to remember who it was. There was a pitcher that was up like a mile or two an hour, but it was like an inning or two. A lot of these guys will come out throwing absolute gas for a couple innings and then kind of teeter off. And those are the guys that, like, we need to see that sustain over a long period of time, over multiple innings, multiple outings. So that's where it is with that stuff. You got to really be mindful. Like, you can't overreact to just one outing. But in terms of like Eovaldi's velocity being up was really encouraging, just because last time he was really good, the velocity was up, but he also had a setback like right after, and then he's back again. So I'm trying not to overreact as a whole, because it's hard not to. But
I feel like this is the Mitch Keller question. Like last year, everybody was like, Mitch Keller's like 2 miles per hour.
He did it again this spring. He's doing it again.
And
I'm buying back in.
And he's still the same Mitch Keller, by the way. Sorry.
No, I refuse to admit that. I'm did
not see this coming. Oh wait,
I drafted him and was like, why? How? I knew better. Okay.
I'm buying back in. I can't help it, just because he's so cheap again.
He is cheap,
he's like streamer territory again.
Yeah. Oh, he started because but last year what happened is he wasn't cheap, like super cheap last year, because everybody was like, oh, but now, like, I think this year everybody's like, oh, we get it, Mitch. Like, you're good in spring. You know, it's one of those. But like, so maybe people are backing off a little bit. But
okay, so a couple guys here. Chris Bassett, I just want to make a point that he himself has come out and said, like, hey, I'm doing this on purpose. So I like a guy like that, a veteran, no news of injury, no even hints of injury.
Yeah,
I tend to believe that. Maybe he'll be a slow starter. So if you're in a league that does trades, maybe you buy low if he starts off slow, because he's got like one of those middle tier guys that people like this year. I like him, and he's been slowly raising his velocity throughout spring. So it's almost like it made it more believable. Kyle Bradish has been kind of we've been seeing increased velocity from him and a lot of hype building there, and I'm buying it. But again, it's because of the prices there. He's kind of in that fifth starting pitcher range in deeper leagues, 6th or 7th in shallower leagues. Probably be a streamer in most shallow leagues, but a guy that you should have your eye on, just because we saw the second half breakout last year a little bit for him. And if he's actually if Kyle Bradish is adding velocity entering the year and pairing that with what we saw in terms of the growth in the second half, I think there's a real breakout potential there. And then you have to remember, the Orioles, that park isn't so bad for pitchers
anymore.
It's not a bad pitcher's park now. It's actually a bad hitter's park now.
I went to a game. So we both, AJ and I, live close to there, and I went to a game last year, and man, there were a couple of hits, and I was like, oh, and I was like, damn,
it died.
It just like, you're like, what the hell? Like, you're expected to go out
3 years ago. That would have been out of here.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, yeah. All right, never mind. So it loses its luster, but for pitchers, it's phenomenal now.
Yeah.
But anyway, to jump to the next question here, and to kind of build off of this one too. So Reid Detmers is the guy who, I've sort of had my eye on this offseason, and I'm looking at his numbers. His K per 9 rate is way up this year, this spring, right? It's K per 9 rate in the minors and in the majors, 8.51. It wasn't great last year. This spring, man, 17 strikeouts in 13 innings. The ERA has gone sky high though, man. Well, not sky high, but he's like in the 4s. So he had a good season last year, but the Ks just weren't there, unfortunately. Thoughts on him from, last year's performance and then looking at what he's doing this spring?
I feel like he's just a big tease at this point. Like, I feel like we get really good runs from him, and then kind of just like ups and downs. Like last year, he had a sub 4 ERA, which a 3.77 ERA is really strong. Yeah. It's not a bad outing. The WHIP was even around 1.2, so it's like there's room for improvement there. This spring, the WHIP is sub 1. The ERA is 2.6. I don't know what you were.
Wait, what the hell did I see?
I see 23 strikeouts. I see 23 strikeouts over 17.1 innings. Maybe pitched since you wrote the numbers down.
Oh, maybe
that's the other thing.
I did it yesterday. Did he pitch yesterday?
A couple bad. I don't remember.
Or today?
I have to look.
That might have been what it was. I did do these notes yesterday,
which is possible. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about a 17 inning sample. But it's encouraging to see.
Yeah, no,
that's
even better than what I had. I'm trying to look it up. I'm trying to pull it up now because I'm curious. Did I totally click on the wrong guy?
Which is even better. I mean, I didn't want to be rude and be like, "Hey, I don't know what you're talking about," but it's like one of those things where it's like, "Oh, I'm the numbers I pulled up on MLB."
Are you looking at Reid Detmers? Is that what you're doing? Because he hasn't been playing for a while.
No,
and he also played football.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm looking at Reid Detmers with a sub 3 ERA and a sub 1 WHIP, and I'm like, this is interesting. And I'm like, that's not the numbers I just saw.
No, he must have pitched because he only had 13 innings. He must have pitched another game.
He pitched yesterday.
Yeah, that's what it was then. I did this like at noon yesterday. So
and he's another one of those guys
those
where
stats weren't there. So his stats were not like that when I wrote these notes down. Duly noted. When you do the spring training show, don't do the notes until the day of.
Dude, that's the biggest frustration when I'm writing these articles because like I'm over here putting stats in and numbers and they change.
Boom, they change. Yeah. But yeah, these are even better. So now his ERA is actually good. His strikeouts are still really good. And his WHIP's even better. So now what do we do? Because now he's back to his ERA from even better than last year, and his strikeouts are up from last season, almost to where they were in the minor level, where he was like 12 per 9.
Well, this spring so far, at least yesterday's start, the velo's up everywhere. The slider almost 3 miles per hour yesterday on the slider, almost a full tick on the 4-seamer, 2 on the curveball, which more velocity doesn't always mean better production, but what it can mean is better spin, which it did not yesterday. But you could just see there's different. It's almost like the movement profile on his sliders changed a little bit this offseason. Maybe that's by design. The 4-seamer seemed to have a little more movement on it as well, so a little more run on it maybe. Ultimately, though, you like to see this type of stuff happen. Just the velocity alone, possibly reshaping pitches, which is very common for pitchers to kind of tinker in the offseason and figure things out. If he figured things out and he's throwing a 4-pitch mix and leading with the slider yesterday at least, Detmers just has all the potential to break out. It's just a matter of will he. I feel like the Angels just know how to screw things up. I don't trust the Angels. Like it's always an injury. It's always something. It's always like you see a guy like Heaney leave the Angels, get fixed, and now like is he gonna return? Like, now that he's not with the Dodgers anymore, is he gonna return to a pumpkin? So it's like one of those things where I don't know what to expect here. But Detmers is a guy that, given the price and given the potential, and that he showed us last year, he's showing us in spring, why not buy in?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that too. So AJ, you can do the next one.
Yes, I will.
This question is fun.
Sorry.
A little surprise.
Yes. So Brandon Pfaadt is dominating the spring. But clearly at this point he's not getting the 5th spot. So who do you expect to get the 5th spot?
I don't really want either one. I really wanted Pfaadt.
Right?
Well, just because the name was awesome, but also he was performing the best. He was the one that really stood out. But when you looked at like early reports, I remember writing this for an article. Early reports when they were talking about fighting for the 5th spot, his was like the only name not included, with like Tommy Henry, Ryan Nelson, and Dre Jameson. Those 3 names were the names mentioned. Tommy Henry was optioned, so now it's back to Ryan Nelson and Dre Jameson, and they're both having terrible springs. Don't really want either one. If performance matters, I guess give me Jameson. I mean, he's striking out more batters. He has a better whip. His ERA is 0.2 points worse, but they're both over 7.
Yeah, it's
they're
bad.
both. It's one of those things where
sending him down.
I'm trying to think. Did they send down Jameson? I know they sent down Pfaadt.
No, they sent down Pfaadt. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they sent down Pfaadt just.
But Pfaadt also wasn't on the Pfaadt also wasn't on the 40 man, so they needed a clear spot for him. This is a team that has no reason to hold him back for long. He's performed well last year in the minors. He's going, and the thing is, he pitches in a very hitter friendly PCL, so that matters too. Like, so it's like if you can, I like to look past the ERA in that situation. Look more at like the K- walk rates. You know, like can he control the zone? Can he get strikeouts? Because the ERAs are tend and the home runs tend to be inflated in the PCL just because of because of how everything plays up there. But ultimately, Pfaadt is the guy we all want, the guy that should be breaking the camp with this team. But I think it's just a matter of they're gonna try to get the extra year out of him. But he should be up. There's no way he's got to be up sooner than later, man. He's just, these other guys just suck. like they're like okay. I looked into both of them before the season started, and I'm like they're just guys. Like they're just guys.
They're not good. Yeah,
they're Jags.
So,
you know,
knowing that
Ryan Nelson
he's got to be up. I mean, are you drafting him and kind of stashing him?
I've heard his date's like July 10th. That's actually kind of late.
Is it? See, I didn't realize the date was
Somebody
that late.
I've read that somewhere.
Break.
It's kind of late, and so
that's
I'm
the
like,
All-Star
oof.
break right there.
Yeah, I mean it's basically
probably honestly most people that get sent down this weekend. Like if Anthony Volpe and company get sent down, unless I have an NA slot, I'll try to stash some of these guys, but I won't force it. Like if there's an injury that happens, I really care about the guy that got injured. Like these guys would become like those first cuts.
They're hard to hold.
Because it's just one of those things where like, in a league, you often have to turn and burn that spot or you're missing out. Like what are the odds that he comes up for, even if he comes up for 4 months, what if he regresses? What if, and I'm talking about, this is just he as in any prospect.
Yeah.
You stash a prospect for a month or two. They come up and they completely bomb. In the meantime, you could have used that spot to turn and burn 2-star pitchers. You could have used that spot to pick up an actual difference maker.
Tough.
Like you missed out, say you missed out on this year's Jake McCarthy and because you were stashing a guy. You know, stuff like that. That's where it comes. Like, don't get me wrong, the guy you're stashing could be this year's Jake McCarthy in terms of being a league winner or John Birdie, whatever. Pick insert name here that was a really good bench piece off the waiver wire. You can also be stashing that bench piece. So to sit there, I'm playing devil's advocate though, because how often is it that these top prospects pan out? It's not. I think we get spoiled from every Acuna, for every Soto, for every J-Rod, for every Witt. There's more Kelnicks, Adels, and guys like that that just don't. Brinson.
Hell, even Trout wasn't good when he first got called up. Like people forget that.
We're so spoiled by the elites that when these guys struggle when they come up, and like Andrew Vaughn wasn't the hitter he was supposed to be in his first passing, and he's starting to just now come around. We'll see if this year he finally breaks out, but like stuff like that, you just like Torkelson, like look at these guys, top prospects that people were stashing, holding, and because we get spoiled by these guys that just kill it, we forget that how infrequent that happens.
We said this just last week with Michael Snyder, AJ. Like, I have a tough time drafting and holding these prospects in hope that they will be good, because you are likely holding them at least for a month, right?
Yeah.
You might be holding
most of the time, yeah.
And the problem is you're going to get injuries in the meantime. You're going to get, you're going to need spots, and so like I just don't even want to bother with it. So I don't deal with it.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a fun sidebar question here. What is the favorite team name that you've seen so far with Pfaadt's name in it?
I mean, I feel like it's just such an easy name. I haven't seen any, but I feel like a good one would be like pull over that ass too fat.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
That's where my head went right away. Like for some reason, like I thought of Trina. Like that's I think that's who's saying it back in the early 2000s. Jeez,
That's
look it up.
name, by the way, in our league, if he's still listening. My Fat Fab. Not super exciting, but I like it.
I like fat stacks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Yo Mama So Fat.
Yeah,
right? That's obvious, but it's
don't
a
know
good
why
one.
why I went with Trina and Trick Daddy's song from the early 2000s. Beyond me.
It works. I mean, I was leaning. If I was going musical, I was leaning Weird Al Yankovic. But you know.
No, there's a lot of good ones. I'm excited to see what's going to happen here with those team names because they will definitely be funny. But last question here before we jump into some lineup takeaways and kind of promote your tracker a little bit more here. Just real quick, out of these guys, who debuts first? And if you want to throw a couple other guys that are kind of in the same ballpark, Yuri Perez, Zach Veen, Harry Ford, Valera. Who's the one, and then if are any of these guys who's the one who jumps out to you as man, when they get called up, you have to go get them?
Pfaadt.
Oh, that's tough. I don't think any of them are gonna. Maybe I gotta look him up.
So some of the guys I'm talking the guys that aren't Volpe, right? Volpe,
yeah.
Those are the dead giveaways. Oh man, when they get called up, if they weren't drafted in the league somehow, those are the guys you're going after them. We know that for a fact, right?
I'm trying to think of guys that are obviously not the Jordan Walkers, not the Volpes, not the. I think the guys you listed here might be a year away, unfortunately. Okay. So I'm trying to think of guys not obvious, and I gotta look at teams. I almost wish Terang wasn't on everyone's radar. So I'd be like, oh, Terang.
Well, but I mean, believe it or not, he's probably not going to get drafted in most 12-team leagues, so he's a good one there.
But he's not really. But he's at this point, he's not really a pro. I mean, he's still a prospect technically because he hasn't debuted, but he's not a guy that. I'm just looking. I got one. Curtis Mead for the Rays.
Okay,
top prospect for the Rays, and if Isak Paredes can't cut it at third base. They have Curtis Mead. Mead last year combined for 13 home runs, 7 stolen bases, low power, low speed, double-digit walk rate at both stops, and a 20% or better strikeout rate at both stops. So the plate discipline's there, the hit tool's there, and he did this all in under I'm trying to guesstimate around 330 plate appearances. So the power showed to be there, a little bit of speed, and I believe he's decent with the glove. I would have to double-check the scouting report on him on that. But nope, the fielding is very, very low rated. Never mind. But that could be fixed. That's something you can actually get better at is fielding. Yeah. But he is the team's top prospect. He is on the doorstep, and I believe Mead is a guy that could be making a difference in fantasy leagues this year that not a lot of people are talking about because it is the Rays, but also because I feel like for our top prospect in an organization, no one really knows him. It's weird because I was like, I mean, I don't know. Just a guy that I found out this year just because redraft. I'm later to prospects than your average prospect person because I focus on redraft so much that a guy like this, I noticed he was kept. They held him on. What made him pop on my list was they held him in a way to avoid him going to the Rule 5 draft. They made a point to add him to the 40-man so he wouldn't go to the Rule 5 draft. And that's when I start looking at that. When I see stuff like that happen, that catches my attention because now they already have a spot in the 40-man. Mm-hmm. And they have to be, and they're going to stay on the 40-man. So, him
easy
and
call up at that point.
Parker Meadows for the Detroit Tigers, just because it's another team that obviously Austin Meadows plays for, so his brother's there, but another team that just has path to playing time. I mean, all it takes is one injury or the trade deadline, so it might be a second half guy. But Parker Meadows has power, has speed, flashed in spring, a little bit of strikeout concerns, which also flashed in spring. But we saw Meadows take that step forward in the minors last year. Should start off at AAA, and if he can get going quickly, like I said, one injury or a trade come mid-season, he should be up this year too.
Okay. So we're gonna jump into some kind of lineup takeaways. We know obviously from your spring training lineup tracker sheet. Mm-hmm. That you follow this very closely. So, if everybody doesn't know, by the way, Mike does this awesome tracker sheet from week 1 all the way through the end of spring training. He tracks every single lineup for every single team and gives notes and his thoughts on what this means as far as playing time moving forward and fantasy relevance. It is phenomenal. So
I shared it. I shared it if you wanted to show it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So I know I've got the
nice.
banners here all screwing this up. So
now I actually did put this on the Patreon this year. This is the first year I paywalled it. I felt so guilty, but for like years, I mean, think about it. I do this every day. I take all I take all lineups. I update them by team week, like you mentioned.
I'm
Week.
full screen it. We're gonna hide ourselves because
I have 90 names on this list of players playing new positions, and I know I'm missing some, but these are just players I've played, like where they're eligible per NFBC, how many total games they've started this spring, and where they played, and how many games they played there.
The information on this tracker is phenomenal, and do not feel guilty, man. Although I will say I felt guilty going behind paywall too.
Yeah, it's weird.
At some point I was like, I mean,
yeah. So like you mentioned, I make notes almost every day. I go team by team.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. And then the teams have their own team page, so you can go look at everyone's whole spring training.
It is
lineups.
phenomenal.
So
it is phenomenal.
I do, and
the notes alone are like the best thing because I'm always like, what does Mike think?
Well, it's more so. I do the homework for people. So what I do is I do the homework. I monitor everything. Like everything from injuries. I don't monitor pitcher information on this because this is strictly hitters, but I will monitor injuries. So like for instance, James Paxton, threw another bullpen session Tuesday. Cool.
James
All right.
Paxton.
But like Trevino wrist, he's supposed to be in the lineup, but then like I think there was an update. I forgot to update it or update. Oh, scratched. He was scratched here. So it's like I keep up with all that stuff, but then I also keep up with like, all right, cool. Volpe's been playing shortstop, and he's been playing second with Peraza in the lineup, and like little things like that. Or hey, this player is doing this well. Like I don't know. I want to find a good note here, like a good idea of like what to expect because I do this again. You can see some days are busier than others. I'll sit there and break down like Carpenter would be fighting with Miguel Cabrera for PAs via the DH spot while filling in a fourth outfield role. Carpenter is the left-handed hitter and could pair perfectly with Cabrera. Like I give reasoning and I give insight into what I'm seeing. But this
good.
It's
worth
not
the
just
money. Totally.
Hey, this guy's playing this position today.
No, it's
we don't know why, but
I try to give reasoning.
It's actual content. Like
I try to give reasoning.
There's
and
context
this
to the
defines content to me.
Yeah,
and I mean
that's great.
And every so often when I have nothing to write about, like this team, like the Guardians have everything. They've been telling us from day one what they're going to do with their lineup. I start doing little breakdowns, like, hey, look, J Ram has 1 home run, 2 stolen bases, hitting 343, great. Lack of XBH extra base hits is unfortunate, only 2 of 12. This was a couple days ago. Obviously, that could change.
Probably should have mentioned him in that injury. No,
but the power should come. But remember, he's coming off thumb surgery, so. Yeah. So will he be slow to come around to the power? But again, another guy that why does running matter? Because how often do these guys hurt themselves running with their hands? Yep. So that's why I'm like, okay, at least he's running. So especially a thumb. So that's why. So stuff like that. Random.
Sliding into pizza boxes this year. It's going to be like.
So that's why. So like,
this stuff is great, man.
When I don't have information like anything to break down from a lineup, I start looking at like random player stats or like, and this is where I watch Will Brennan. And I just beg that, like, here he is. I'm just begging he'll play center field over Miles Straw every time I see it. Just begging, please let it happen. But
inevitably, man, we're gonna get those opening day rosters. You're gonna be like, what the?
Yeah. Oh no, there's always a couple. There's always a couple
definitely. So,
but that was a sneak peek. That's a peek behind the paywall.
No, that is phenomenal.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but it's labor of love, man. I really enjoy it. I enjoy it. Just again, it makes me more confident as an analyst because I get tons of Twitter questions, DMs. I'm writing articles all the time. I'm on podcasts. It really does. It benefits me as much as it benefits the person reading, and I'm as a player too. So it's I do purposely play deeper leagues because I feel stronger in them now because of stuff like this. But then I also get a false sense of confidence because I start seeing these things and I'm like, oh, I know who this player is, but the player might play, but they might just suck too. So like
you get almost outsmart yourself.
Yes, I'm over here like, please
let
Samad Taylor and Michael Garcia play for the Royals. Who are they? Most people don't know. I didn't know
all these guys. But, this guy's really good. He should play.
And
then you draft him, and you're like, why isn't he playing?
Well, why does he suck? Like, why is he not good? He was good. I thought he. I saw.
Sometimes there's almost it's almost like sometimes too much knowledge is like bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid
of. It's good for the consumer. It is really good for the consumer. But we almost consume too much, and you are even way more than us. But AJ, let's jump into these lineup takeaways here. We'll start with the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah. So jumping back into this, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier.
You said it earlier.
So Jerry DePoto was on SiriusXM completely raving about Cooper Hummel, the return that they received from Kyle Lewis, trade with Arizona. DePoto said that they plan on playing him all over the field, including as a third catcher. I mean, this guy's 28. He's had a pretty good summer. I mean, are you buying into the multi-position all-star?
That's the
credit
question.
there. I gotta give this to Dap because
this was Dap's question. That's where the funny "Are you buying into this multi-position all-star" came from, of course, because Dap's a funny guy.
I love Dap. His personality, it lights up a room. Man. He's a great dude.
He throws a lot of stuff on YouTube, and more is coming, by the way, for us. So he's a funny guy. I like him.
I'm trying to find. So I actually tweeted about Cooper Hummel on the 20th. I tweet a lot, but I try to tweet out one interesting stat or player performer that stands out to me while I'm looking through stuff, and he did. So he's a switch hitter with versatility. He was purposely acquired. He caught for the D-backs last year, but this spring he's played catcher, first base, right field, and left field. He does have a strikeout problem. At least he has this spring, but he's also hitting for power. Last I checked, over 1,000 OPS. That could have gone down since I checked. Has a stolen base, so he's running. He's hitting home runs. And this is a team that lost Dylan Moore. This is a team that has Sam Haggerty playing all over the infield, which normally he's an outfielder. So it's almost like Haggerty's taking over Moore's utility role in the infield. And then you have Cooper Hummel, who can kind of play the corner outfield spots, catch a little bit, play first base. I think Hummel is just going to be a guy that kind of fits that util. So they just need depth. And I think he fills a lot because they're missing Taylor Trammell. They're missing, I mentioned Dylan Moore. I think there's, I know Cade Marlowe was another name that's another prospect that was under the radar coming into the year that the Poto name dropped in an article that nobody was talking about. Big power speed profile in the minors, very cerebral kid apparently. And he had an oblique issue in spring and kind of derailed him. They got him sent down right away. So again, it's just less depth, more injuries, and path to relevance there. Now, I'm hoping he gets 10 appearances as a catcher because he's another guy I've drafted late in these leagues I'm mentioning. He's another guy I drafted super late, hoping that he gets catcher eligibility because as a second catcher, if he's only playing 3 games a week, even via whatever position he's playing, that could be valuable in these really deep formats they're talking about, or AL only. So Hummel's a guy that I like. The switch hitting part is also there too. So it's like he's like, how much more versatile can he be?
And he's not, catcher? So he can play either side of the platoon.
Yeah.
The other thing that because I know you play in these deeper NFBC formats. AJ and I play in I play in some of those, but we generally came up through we're playing 12-team daily transactional leagues.
I just have
daily transactional leagues. He's golden because you don't have to worry about he's only going to play 4 games or 3 games this week. If you just plug him in those days, right? He's good,
especially if he's catcher. A lot of his value will come from if he can be a catcher. Him and Blake Sable, that's why I paired them together because if they could both, I think Sable has catcher eligibility though, so he's already kind of a plus in those leagues. But these are the guys that almost like Dalton Varsho, where they're not primary catchers, but they can get playing time playing elsewhere, which can lead to more value as a second catcher. And even in TGFBI, where you have 2 catchers, he could be a guy that once he gains eligibility, maybe you're picking him up as your second catcher, even if he's only playing 3 or 4 games a week. Those 3 games a week could be more valuable than insert terrible second catcher here who doesn't do anything for you anyway and plays 4 or 5 times a week.
On Fantrax, he's actually got catcher eligibility.
Perfect.
So we
another reason
obviously reached out and was like, we should take Cooper Hummel, and I was like, okay.
I'm not a Mariners fan, by the way. I just real quick on this one. It actually says Sleepy K, my nickname in the back, because I haven't used that nickname in a while. But during the shortened season of the COVID era of baseball, I became a Mariners fan because Marlins were terrible and they made the playoffs that year. So of course they made the playoffs the year I decided I'm still a Marlins fan, but it was just one of those things where I adopted the Mariners before they were. I can say I adopted the Mariners before they were good because I was such a huge Kyle Lewis guy, and that's what. So Kyle Lewis, the Kyle Lewis fandom carried me over there just because it was one of those years where I liked Carlos. And I think there was someone else. I was just super in on a couple of Mariners players. And I was like, well, screw it. I'm going to be a Mariners fan. So I adopted another terrible team. But at least now the Mariners are good, but they are my second team.
All right. So let's jump in here to
Thanks,
the second
Dave.
question. The Dodgers. So, man, outside of Mookie, who's also going to play a little second this year, sounds like, but outside of Mookie Betts, man, what the hell is going on with this Dodgers outfield?
Okay,
Anybody
so
know?
no, so we actually got some clarification today. At least I think we did.
Okay.
So Dave Roberts today said that James Outman will make the opening day roster, which was a question because they have so much depth in the outfield. But they have David Peralta. They went out and signed. They have Trace Thompson, who they want to give at bats to. They have obviously Mookie, Chris Taylor, who's going to factor, but Chris Taylor's also going to play shortstop to help Rojas get days off. Ultimately, Outman and I think Outman and Thompson, which we saw them platoon at times last year, I think that's going to be a platoon again. I think Outman gets the strong side being the lefty. Thompson goes back to being a weak side platoon, but he's a strong weak side.
I took Thompson in a few places.
That's my guess. Well, Ross Resource doesn't agree with me right now. Ross Resource has Thompson plugged in. I think Outman. I don't think they kept Outman up without the idea of starting him every day, because if you look at this outfield, he was the only one without options left.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, with options left. They could have sent him down with no problem and kept up another position. Instead, they kept two outfielders on the bench because they've said Hayward is supposed to be breaking camp. So I don't know what they're planning on doing there.
Is Hayward just for defensive purposes at this point?
I don't know, man.
Like,
he's
I don't
awful.
understand him anymore. Like,
they actually have to clear. They actually have to clear a spot for him on the 40 man. Still, that's the wild part. Like they're making a point. They're making a point to clear a 40 spot roster spot for him. 40 man roster.
He is the definition of real MLB name value.
They actually have. They have a way of doing it. So it looks like Lux. I don't think Lux is on the 60 day yet. So when they put Lux to the 60 day, that'll clear a spot. That'll clear.
Somebody explain to me why baseball teams do not just put these guys that they clearly know are done on the 40 man, like, or out, like on the IL, like in why?
Well, like right now, I don't know if it matters when. It's one of those. The weird thing is like they can put them on the IL.
It only matters to fantasy.
Yeah, they can put.
Please, I need the.
They can put them on the IL, but it's like then they don't have to. They can actually put them on the regular IL, then retro it up to like a week or something like that, so they don't actually have to put them on the 60
But
day
these
IL.
guys that you know are gone for like the entire season. Why are you waiting? You know they've got surgery. Just get rid of them.
Yeah, he's out for the year. Yeah, I don't get it either.
Yeah, absolutely, love it. I went to Cold Stone with my kids today, and they have a new Reese's Buttercup ice cream. So I had to wear my Reese's Buttercup shirt.
And you had to eat and then you order Snickers.
And Joe's in the corner again at Cold Stone and at his own house.
I actually didn't get one.
Eating
today,
like Zeke over there.
But no, we're good. Yeah, so that's interesting. But AJ, why don't you finish things up here? Ask this last question. And
all right, so
I mean,
we actually
maybe
we actually got answers. We can get through that one. I hate to interrupt. Moreno and Kelly won. Kelly has a fractured forearm confirmed. So that kind of figured that fixed that one. That was just like, we can. I was like, we can just skip to the last part, I guess.
Yeah, no, we actually we removed that question because I kind of saw
it's
that.
on my side.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't remove it for your side. Sorry, it's on our side. No, all good. Yeah, the Dodgers the Diamondbacks catcher situation. So I think we're good to know there.
All right. So the last question on everybody's minds here, well, really just ours. Is there any other teams or players throughout spring training that are worth mentioning that we have not talked about yet?
Okay, so we talk. I think we talked about the Oscar Colas situation.
Yeah.
Okay, we did. Okay,
a little bit, but
don't worry. Oh, I don't need to go into too much in depth. It's a matter of will they let him break camp and make a spot for him 40 man? Brent, I mentioned some. Okay, how about this one? Because maybe people are still drafting him as a starter. I don't think he's gonna break camp as a starter. Christopher Morel. He's played everywhere this spring, but a starting spot. Anytime there's a roster with starters in it, Morel is often not found in it. Morel has played center, short, other positions. He has, and everyone thought third base. You know, if you look at roster resource before the spring training started, he was plugged into third base. He has since not taken a single start there this spring. Last I checked,
He's an interesting one, man. Like, and I was talking about him with a whole bunch of
Yeah.
other people. Like, I see him get drafted in these like TGFBIs and RAS slams like kind of early, and I look at his numbers and I look at his underlying stats and I'm like, why? And then I look at roster resource. I'm like, he doesn't actually have a spot. Like
now he doesn't. Yeah.
So it was just strange, and so I was always like, I'll take somebody else. But it's very interesting that you brought his name up.
So Morel's a guy that he's toolsy. He has power. He has speed.
Yeah,
he also has swing. He also has swing and miss in his game. That's really bad, and that's the big issue here. Even in even in spring, it's 42.6% strikeout rate in spring.
Oh my God.
But he also has 4 home runs and a stolen base and an 890 OPS. So the tools are there, very very toolsy, power, speed. But man, can he not hit a ball sometimes? So, but cool. He's like flashing the tools. We saw him last year. We also saw Morel lose playing time last year towards down the stretch, and was kind of infrequent playing time. You know, blah blah blah. I still think he'll factor in, you know, as a super util type because he can play all over the field. He'll get, you know, 3 games a week, maybe 4. So he's not going to be completely like that. He's not going to lack value completely, but he's not a guy that I see as a starter for a fantasy team coming in the regular season. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they'll make some cuts here and clear some space for him to play more. But anybody striking out 42% of the time in spring that has strikeout problems that didn't fix those and can't fix them against minor league pitching that he's facing most of the time, I have a hard time buying into him improving it when the season starts, in spite of having those flashy tools we want for fantasy purposes. Now, an injury, sure, he might get an everyday role, or maybe just poor performance from Edwin Rios, Madrigal, etc. Other guys that might be ahead of him right now. So I'm not ruling him out, but the fact that he's being drafted as a starter, when I just don't view him as one personally, is where I'm like, yeah, there's a disconnect there. So he's a guy that stood out to me in terms of in a negative way. And then I mentioned Joe Adell earlier was another name. Just like he can't. Last I checked, that strikeout rate was also horrendous, and there's also no path to playing time. But there is another Angels guy we can talk about here.
I was joking today or yesterday when I was talking with Dap a little bit about like
43% by the way for Adell.
Yeah, I was like, I sorted the minor league or the spring training stats by home runs, and I was like, oh look, there's Joe Adell at the top.
4 home runs, 43%,
like,
41% strikeout rate though. So 43%.
Yeah, he has like a 220 batting average. I was like, oh, there's also that
home run or bust. He's home run or bust. He doesn't even walk. He has 22 strikeouts, just 2 walks.
Yeah, so
in 50 plate appearances.
Yeah,
this spring.
So
another guy.
Have a question from Michael Peterson. What do you think of the Minnesota Twins rotation?
I think it's kind of falling apart, like not falling apart, but it's kind of figuring itself out just because like guys like Winder are not quite ready. Last I checked anyway, and I'm pulling it up right now because I it's one thing I'll be the first one to admit I don't follow
Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, Tyler Mahle, Kenta Maeda. And then
that's the thing. Ober's getting squeezed. Yes, I hate to say that.
I hate that. I really wish he could get a chance.
It goes back to a guy that had like gain in velocity early on in the spring, a guy who has really dominant control, like really great control. But this is also, I mean, Sonny Gray, Mahle, Maeda's coming off injury, man. Lopez. These guys just don't stay healthy anyway. So I think Ober's going to pitch plenty. So he's a guy that if you're grabbing, he should be in a multi-inning role just to stay ready to start. He's also very efficient. So Ober is not the type of guy that needs, like, even if he has an 80 pitch limit on his first couple starts, he can get through 5 innings with him. He's a super efficient pitcher usually. Yeah. But Ober's a guy that I think he's the odd man out here as long as everyone's healthy. But I think he'll pitch plenty because this team won't stay healthy the whole year. It's just, I mean, they have guys that just don't stay healthy.
Lopez, Gray, and
Mahle came off an injury last year. Maeda too. Prone. So yeah, that's why. So I think Ober's the odd man out, but Ober he's a guy that you can hold on to because again, he'll pitch. He's going to provide innings, which will help. He's just one of those guys that he's not a guy I'm going to look to make a point to stash long term though. Like if it's like a week or 2 in, I'm like, oh, Ober's not starting yet. He's hard. He's not that good. He's not that streamable good, guy. He's a solid guy in a deeper format because he can eat innings and be above average. But in terms of beyond that, he's not stash worthy is the problem. I don't look at him and think, oh, I gotta stash this guy.
Yeah, I totally agree. So,
And,
all right, man. Well, that is it for the show, man. I want to thank you again for coming on. And before we let you go, give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter and social media or whatever, and what you got going on this season.
Always a lot. So Twitter is where you'll find. I'll put all my work out there. It's at Mike_Kurland, Kurland. You mentioned the Athletic, the Patreons, the big thing, patreon.com/GTE Fantasy. The YouTube channel, I've been trying to. I do shorts every day. I'm going to get back to live streaming. A lot of baseball content coming up. So youtube.com/@GTE Fantasy. The letters GTE. If you look up GTE, you'll find my work. Those 3 letters, you can find anything involving it. It stands for gaining the edge. So yes, you want to gain the edge? Follow me. There it is. There's the cliche. No, but in all seriousness, appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, man. Always.
Really, just
always a
Twitter.
pleasure.
Twitter is the best place to get a hold of me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You do phenomenal work, and that's why we like to have you every season. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that is it for you for the show, guys. Mike, we will bid adieu, and we will see you next time, man. So, that being said, I think we are done. The season starts next week. We have a special guest for you. I did rope in Mr. Dap himself for next Thursday's show. It's always a fun one. It's our little fun tribute to opening day. You know, the random guys that hit 2 home runs, and you're like, oh man, they're on pace for like 300. You know, it's crazy shit like that, right? You know, but you know, we do dive into some real stats too. But you know, Dap's a funny guy. He's also very smart when it all comes to this too. But he will bring some entertainment along with AJ and myself. So next Thursday is a fun show because there's really not a lot to go on. It's one day, but it's just fun to do. And it's just, you know, celebrate opening day. So with that being said, again, hit those subscribe buttons. Go check out those plans, and see y'all next week. Opening day, baby. Peace.
Later.